Disney is often described as one of the world's greatest cultural icons. Their films have the strange ability to make adults cry, while also guiding kids toward lessons of hope and imagination. The studio isn't just a household name. It holds control over nearly 40% of the global movie market and has been around longer than most other production companies still running today. The brand has always guarded its family-friendly image with iron fists. Even now, with more PG-13 projects sliding into their catalog, everything tied to Disney is carefully polished to maintain that safe for everyone label. But that squeaky clean reputation doesn't come without consequences. Over the years, Disney has been caught doing some unsettling things to keep their image clean, much like how McDonald's reels in customers when they're kids and keeps them hooked through nostalgia. Disney plants its magic in you young, and then keeps you tied to it forever. Hard to imagine, isn't it? Something you adored as a child turning into a giant corporate empire that dominates almost half of America's film industry. Before we go further, I need to warn you. Watching this video might change the way you see Disney, and not in a fun way. Some of the things we'll cover get very dark, and I'm only saying this once. If I ruin Disney for you after this, don't say I didn't warn you. Now, in case you're unfamiliar, let me explain how an iceberg works. Think of it as layers of knowledge. The surface holds the obvious and well-known facts, while the deeper you go, the stranger, hidden, and more disturbing the truths become. That's the format we'll be following here. We'll start light. Disneyland's 1955 opening ceremony featured a speech from Walt Disney himself. That speech was secretly encoded in Morse Code and played at the train station, repeating the words, "To all who come to Disneyland, welcome. Here age relives fond memories of the past, and here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future." Sweet and wholesome, perfect surface-level iceberg material. And right after that, we hit our first quirky entry, Hidden Mickeys. As soon as I read the name, it felt familiar, like I'd heard about it before. I've actually seen this one pop up before. In Swoozy's Confessions of a Disneyland Employee, he pointed out that Disney may be sneaking logos everywhere as a way of subtly shaping how visitors see the brand. The idea ties into something called the mere exposure effect. The more often people see the Disney logo, the more likely they are to associate positive feelings with it. So, even the constant little Mickey symbols scattered around the park could be a form of hidden advertising. The entry about the Indiana Jones rope was trickier. I couldn't dig up much beyond the detail that Indy's father once got rope burn in the films. If anyone watching knows the real story behind this one, share it in the comments, because it feels too vague to pin down. Since this is still surface-level iceberg territory, let's move on. Next, we've got the mysterious green paint. Disney has a specific shade they use when they want something to vanish into the background. Wiring, pipes, boxes, or any out-of-place structures get painted this dull green color, and somehow, it works. You just stop noticing them. It's one of those small tricks that keeps the illusion alive. As for Jungle Cruise maps, I couldn't find anything solid either. Maybe the term's too broad, or maybe it's just harmless. But while looking, I did stumble across something worth mentioning. Years ago, Disney quietly retired a section of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. It was known as the bride auction scene, where women were literally lined up to be sold. Yeah, you heard that right. Even for Disney, that one felt out of pocket. Then there's the Mark Twain Wheelhouse. This one is surprisingly wholesome. From what I've read, some lucky guests are chosen to go up to the wheelhouse of the Mark Twain riverboat. They get to ring the bell, blow the horn, and even wander through the engine room. A hidden perk, but definitely one of the lighter secrets. Pluto interacting with service dogs is another heartwarming one. It refers to the cast member dressed as Pluto giving love and attention to guide dogs who visit the park. Simple, pure, and honestly pretty lovable. And finally, Disney's Make-A-Wish program. The wording is vague, but it almost certainly refers to the company's decades-long work with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Since 1980, Disney has helped fulfill over 140,000 wishes for children. Whatever criticisms you throw at the company, that's a number worth acknowledging. Disney isn't just about scandals and shady rumors. Sometimes they genuinely surprise people with small, clever, or even thoughtful details. Take Tomorrowland, for instance. Believe it or not, most of the plants there are edible, around 80% of them to be exact. Of course, that doesn't mean guests are encouraged to nibble their way through the park, but it's a quirky fact Disney proudly points out. Another clever feature is something called the utility system. Beneath the Magic Kingdom in Florida, there's a hidden network of tunnels used by employees. Instead of squeezing through massive crowds, cast members can move quickly below the surface, appearing right where they're needed without anyone noticing. While visitors see flawless magic above ground, there's an entire secret operation running underneath their feet. Now, let's talk about one of the internet's favorite park myths: Andy's coming. The story goes that if you yell "Andy's coming" near Toy Story characters, they're supposed to drop to the ground like toys. Sounds fun, right? Except, it's not true. Cast members don't do this anymore, and yelling it out only creates a painfully awkward moment. Trust me, if you look it up online, you'll find plenty of secondhand embarrassment. So please, spare everyone and don't try it. And here's a little insider tip for the Mad Tea Party ride. Not every teacup spins at the same speed. They're set differently. And if you want the wildest ride, go for the orange diamond cup. It's the fastest. The purple cup comes close, while the ones with hearts are the slowest. So, next time you're at Disneyland, you'll know exactly which cup to aim for depending on whether you want chaos or a calmer spin. Moving on, let's talk about something small but surprisingly extra: manhole covers. At Disneyland, they aren't just the standard, boring kind you'd expect. Disney actually went as far as customizing them with designs that include the Walt Disney logo and hidden Mickeys. It's such an unnecessary detail you'd never notice unless you were specifically looking down. But that's the point. They even put effort into something as forgettable as manhole covers. Now we're stepping into the slightly cheekier side of the iceberg. Not disturbing, but definitely eyebrow-raising. One of the most famous is sex in The Lion King. In the original VHS release, there's a moment where the stars in the sky form a pattern that looks suspiciously like the word sex. A 4-year-old reportedly noticed it, told his parents, and the whole thing blew up after a religious group got involved. When Disney re-released The Lion King on Disney+, they altered the scene so the sex lettering isn't visible anymore. Coincidence or not, I'll let you decide. Then there's River Country, Disney World's first ever water park. It opened back in 1976 and eventually closed in 2001 after newer parks like Typhoon Lagoon and Blizzard Beach took its place. Here's the strange part. While most Disney attractions are demolished or reimagined, River Country was simply left behind. To this day, the abandoned park is slowly being overtaken by trees, vines, and wildlife. It's like Disney's forgotten ghost town. And of course, we can't ignore the infamous Little Mermaid Priest Explicit. During the wedding scene where Eric is about to marry Ursula in disguise, the officiating priest clearly appears to have an erection. Disney later claimed it was just his knee, but come on, fans weren't buying it. By the time the movie hit Disney+, that detail was quietly fixed. Still, how that ever made it past animators remains a mystery. During World War II, Disney shifted gears and actually produced propaganda cartoons for the Allies. Clips from these shorts still surface online, showing Donald Duck in Nazi Germany, saluting Hitler in Der Führer's face, or handling weapons in Commando Duck. What a lot of people get wrong is assuming Donald was being portrayed as a Nazi. In reality, the cartoons mocked the regime and supported the Allied cause. And finally, we land on something that confused me at first: Goofy shorts made for adults. When I first read that entry, I thought it referred to some edgy merch line. But no, it's something else entirely. I couldn't track down much online about this topic, but it reminded me of an old Nostalgia Critic video I watched years back. In it, he claimed that Goofy was once considered pretty hardcore, and a few seconds in, it all clicked. In the 1950s, Goofy had his own series where he was portrayed as the average man. But average man in 1950s America meant something very different. Smoking, road rage, casual prejudice, the whole deal. While Mickey's shorts were designed for kids, these goofy episodes were clearly aimed at an older audience. Watching them now, it's obvious they were made with adults in mind. Then there's the original Snow White ride at Disneyland. Here's the thing, it was marketed poorly. Yes, Snow White is a dark fairy tale at its core, but it's still remembered as a story for children. The ride, however, leans so heavily into the darker side that many kids who went in wide-eyed probably came out traumatized. It just wasn't the happily ever after experience parents were expecting. Of course, controversies aren't new to Disney. With such a long history, some of their older content hasn't aged well. Things that slipped by in the 1950s just don't fly today. A clear example is the Peter Pan song, "What Made the Red Man Red?" As a child, I adored Peter Pan and never thought twice about it. But looking back, the lyrics are obviously offensive. It's now widely recognized as a harmful caricature of Native Americans, and honestly, it's probably for the best that it's been retired. And speaking of racial insensitivity, there's the bigger issue of black stereotypes. Disney has a history of including problematic depictions, and the most infamous is Jim Crow in Dumbo. That character remains one of the most criticized examples of outdated and offensive stereotypes in their entire library. It's fair to say Disney has gone through changes over the years, but remembering its past is just as important. Ironically, while I'm recording this, Disney has actually removed Peter Pan and Dumbo from kids' accounts on Disney Plus because of the racial themes in those films. Children literally can't stream them anymore. One of the stranger stories comes from when the Pirates of the Caribbean ride first launched. Instead of sticking with props, Disney sourced actual human skeletons from a nearby medical institution. Why fake bones weren't good enough is anyone's guess. But yes, real remains were part of the attraction when it opened. Those specific skeletons are no longer there today, but they definitely were at the start. Then there's the infamous rescuers down under mishap. In the original cut, someone from the post-production team spliced in a woman without clothes for 2 frames. Nobody caught it until decades later. By then, Disney had already sold millions of VHS tapes, making it impossible to fully recall. It was the 1970s version of sneaking an inside joke into something like YouTube Rewind, but hidden so well that it went unnoticed for nearly 20 years. Another black mark in Disney's history is Song of the South. The film has long been criticized for reinforcing racial stereotypes and outdated portrayals. It's considered so problematic that it has never been added to Disney Plus, making it one of the few titles the company keeps buried. Finally, there's the rather grim issue of people trying to spread ashes of loved ones at the parks. This has happened often enough that Disney had to release statements saying anyone caught will be escorted out. It all comes down to protecting the brand image. The parks are marketed as the happiest place on earth, and management clearly doesn't want visitors reminded of death or mourning while they're there. You can't exactly scatter the ashes of your loved ones across Disney parks, no matter how much some people might wish to. Now, moving on to the Who Framed Roger Rabbit controversy. It almost explains itself. Roughly 2,000 frames into the movie, eagle-eyed viewers claim there are about 3 or 4 frames showing Jessica Rabbit in what looks like an explicit shot. The footage is so grainy that it's nearly impossible to confirm, but that hasn't stopped the debate. Some argue that the people pointing this out are simply exposing their own imagination, while others believe an animator may have deliberately slipped the shot into the film. Then there's the Haunted Mansion suicide rumor that's floated around online for years. According to the story, once you've entered the Haunted Mansion, the only way to leave is by ending your own life. This comes from the ghost host's introduction, where he implies that his way out was through hanging himself. At another point, the ride supposedly suggests you need to leap from a window to escape. For a Disney attraction, that's a pretty bleak concept, don't you think? Shifting over to Japan, Nara Dreamland was essentially a knockoff of Disneyland. Built in Nara back in 1961, it mirrored Disneyland California almost to the letter. But when Tokyo Disneyland opened in the 1980s, attendance at Dreamland plummeted. The park limped along until closing permanently in August 2006. After sitting abandoned for close to 10 years, it was finally torn down in 2016. And then there's Discovery Island, another forgotten Disney property. It first opened in 1974 as a small wildlife attraction where visitors could see birds and other animals. But controversy quickly followed. Disney faced accusations of cruelty after vultures that landed on the island were mistreated, with the company later admitting that some of the birds actually died while being captured by staff. The scandal led to fines, though the island stayed open until 1999. Afterward, the animals were moved to other facilities, leaving the island deserted. Yet, even in recent years, it hasn't stayed entirely quiet. Just last year, a man was caught camping on the island. His excuse? He claimed he had no idea the place was off limits. Sexism in Disney's past is such a wide topic that it almost feels overwhelming to pin down one place to start. Just like Disney's older work has traces of racism, their catalog also carries plenty of sexist undertones. The early princesses were created to fit very traditional molds. The old Goofy shorts had their fair share of sexist gags. And if you look at dialogue breakdowns, male characters consistently dominate the screen time compared to female ones. It's a massive, layered issue, and sadly, Disney has a long history with it. Then there's the whole Disney made furries argument. Let's be honest, Zootopia alone probably awakened a whole wave of them. I've had people tell me that their first fictional crush came from a Disney movie. None of them openly identify as furries, but I wouldn't be shocked if some never outgrew those crushes and carried it into adulthood. Something I didn't know before researching. Disney once planned to use the xenomorph from Alien for their Alien Encounter attraction. The idea was scrapped because Alien was rated R at the time, and obviously, Disney had to keep its family-friendly reputation intact. The ride eventually opened but closed down in 2003, so it's ancient history now. Moving on, Coal Black and D7 Dwarfs is one of the most offensive, racist parodies of Snow White ever made. It wasn't even Disney. It was created by Warner Brothers in the 1940s. It's part of their so-called Censored 11, which sounds like some exclusive collection, but in reality, it's just a batch of cartoons banned for being outrageously racist. I don't feel right going into detail. It's online if you really want to see it, but honestly, it's just plain racism turned into a cartoon. And then there's Kimba the White Lion, originally a 1950s Japanese manga that spun into multiple TV series. Its similarities to The Lion King are impossible to ignore. Kimba and Simba rhyme. Both stories feature a wise animal sidekick, and both villains are one-eyed lions, Claw in Kimba, Scar in The Lion King. The parallels are so on the nose that it's hard not to see the connection. The filmmakers behind The Lion King have always maintained that they were completely unaware of Kimba the White Lion. Still, considering Disney's history with plagiarism accusations over the years, it wouldn't exactly shock anyone if a few ideas had been borrowed. When it comes to the mention of shorts, that after 9/11s, Disney had to make some adjustments to protect its image and avoid upsetting audiences. Certain scenes were censored or cut altogether. For instance, an extremely goofy movie originally included a moment where firemen were shown rescuing people, which hit too close to the visuals of the Twin Towers. Similarly, the Timekeeper attraction was closed down since it offered a panoramic view of New York, including the towers. Essentially, anything that even loosely reminded people of the tragedy was removed. From this point forward, I'll be leaving out several entries, mainly because they're uncomfortably dark. Many of them revolve around deaths inside Disneyland parks or creepypasta-style stories, and I don't feel that's the type of content I want to bring here. This channel is still fairly new, and I'd prefer not to head in that direction. Just know that most of what I've chosen to skip deals with incidents of people dying. Some creepypastas point to a strange cartoon called Mickey Mouse in Vietnam. It wasn't made by Disney at all, but an independent short film from 1969. It was basically anti-war propaganda, and only a minute long, showing Mickey landing in Vietnam and immediately getting shot. Needless to say, that's not something Disney would ever want connected to their squeaky clean mascot, even if they had nothing to do with it. Back in World War II, there were rumors that Germany might attack the UK with poisonous gas. Children were given gas masks, but many of them were terrified of wearing them. To make it less frightening, Walt Disney actually approved a version shaped like Mickey Mouse. The idea was that kids would find it less scary, though honestly, the masks ended up looking a little more creepy than comforting. Then there's the much darker side, the sexual assault allegations. Over the years, several high-ranking people tied to Disney have been accused of it. Some cases even involved underage victims. I'm not going to dig too deep into it here because it's sensitive and messy, but if you're curious, there's plenty of information out there to look up. In 2000, there was also a hostage situation on Disney property. A man held his 4-year-old son and a Disney employee at gunpoint. The standoff lasted about 11 hours before he finally surrendered without violence. Luckily, no one was hurt, but it's the kind of story the company would rather erase from public memory. Moving on, the Black Cauldron in uncut form was actually the original draft of the Black Cauldron. That early version was way darker than the film Disney eventually put out, loaded with disturbing and surreal imagery. It was seriously grim stuff. Now, Club 33. This one's interesting. It's a secretive members-only club on Disney property. The first one opened in Tokyo, and now there are locations in Shanghai and Disney World, Florida. It's considered one of the most exclusive places Disney has to offer. In fact, the waitlist to join is reportedly around 14 years. Inside, you can actually order alcohol, something you won't find in most of Disney's parks. Because of its exclusivity, not much is really known about it beyond that it exists, has insanely strict membership, and is seen as a kind of hidden society within Disney. Finally, let's end with the Walt Disney is frozen myth. The story goes that Walt's body was cryogenically preserved, so he could be revived once science caught up. But that's not true. Records confirm he was cremated in 1966. I'm not sure where the rumor originally came from, but it's been floating around forever. Either way, it's not based in fact. And that wraps it up. A lot of the ones further down the line are just creepypasta or random stories of people dying. Nothing with much weight. If you've stuck through this whole video, thank you. I know it's been darker than what I usually cover. I'd love to hear in the comments what you want me to cover next. Appreciate you watching. Do subscribe.